Now, from the Bay Area's local news station, you're watching KRON4 News at 5.
Now at 5, a deadly COVID outbreak at San Jose's Kaiser Hospital that may have involved a Christmas costume is even more widespread than first thought. Tonight, Kaiser officials are confirming several new cases, bringing the total number of people infected to at least 60. Thank you for joining us, everybody, on KRON4 News at 5. I'm Grant Lotus.
And I'm Vicki Liviakis. A well-intentioned visitor to the emergency room was trying to spread good cheer, apparently, and may have inadvertently spread the virus instead. Our KRON4's Rob Flatabo brings us up to date on this story live now from San Jose. Rob?
That's right, Vicki and Grant. I'm here outside Kaiser's San Jose Medical Center here in South San Jose. I had no idea that so many people work in the emergency room here, but as Grant was saying, now the number stands at 60 people now testing positive for the virus. You recall over the weekend we learned that 44 people had tested positive. Then yesterday, Kaiser announced that one person had died. The county health department this morning issued a statement saying that there were 7 more new cases. And then late this afternoon, Kaiser itself is out with another statement saying that a total of 16 new cases are out now, bringing the total up to 60. Let's take a look at a statement released from Kaiser here late this afternoon, a couple of them. In fact, the first one reads, quote, "We have determined 60 staff members out of those present in the Kaiser Permanente San Jose Emergency Medical Department on December 25th have tested positive for COVID-19. Working with our infectious disease specialists, we are continuing to investigate the outbreak to determine the potential causes and using contact tracing to personally notify and test anyone exposed." And here's where it gets pretty interesting about how many people work in the ER and just how people visit on a daily basis. The statement goes on to say, quote, "Our physicians have contacted all 70 patients who were treated and discharged from the emergency department on December 25th and are answering any questions patients may have. COVID-19 tests are also being made available to these patients." Now we can take a look at some video and see that the emergency room here at Kaiser San Jose is still open, and it of course is possibly anything but business as usual. This outbreak believed to have been triggered. The investigation continues, but tentatively at least they're thinking that a person, a well-intentioned person, another staff member who also works in the ER, visited the ER on December 25th dressed in some sort of holiday costume. It was an air-powered costume, and they're thinking that that visit, designed to spread good cheer and goodwill and to boost morale among the employees, somehow spread the virus to all who were present at the time, or at least to the 60 people who have now tested positive. The health department says it is aware of this outbreak and has also joined the investigation, saying that Kaiser, just as all other hospitals, must comply with all of the rules regarding testing and tracing going forward. Kaiser says it is doing just that. Kaiser also says that it has been deep cleaning the ER area, high-touch surfaces and so forth. They referenced a HEPA air filtration system that is now in place in the hospital going forward. We should also mention to you that Kaiser has confirmed that vaccinations were underway for a time here, prior to the Christmas holiday, but apparently the vaccine has not had enough time to take effect to provide sufficient protection against the virus. But again, the numbers here this evening, a total of 60 people now tested positive here in connection to this December 25th visit by someone wearing a costume as the investigation continues. That's the latest. Grant and Vicki here from Kaiser in San Jose. Back to you.
Rob, thank you for that. Meantime, in San Francisco, the mayor is hoping the arrival of COVID-19 vaccines are going to help protect the more than 700 long-term care residents at Laguna Hospital.
And those vaccines, of course, can't get here soon enough. They have arrived in the nick of time, you would hope, as a recent outbreak there led to the death of 5 people in fewer than 30 days. KRON4's Dan Kerman is live with us tonight at Laguna Honda for more on what the mayor had to say about how COVID is affecting the city. Good evening, Dan.
Good evening, Grant and Vicki. We can tell you that the mayor is estimating that by the end of today, 90% of residents at Laguna Honda should be vaccinated, a big step in the right direction. COVID-19 vaccinations are underway for more than 700 long-term care residents at San Francisco's Laguna Honda Hospital. They should be completed by Wednesday. Since the pandemic began, 30 residents and 133 staff have been infected, and 5 residents have died just in the last 30 days.
Our fight to keep the virus out of Laguna Honda has been a fight to keep these people alive until we could do what we started doing yesterday, protecting them with the vaccine.
Also, some good news on cases and hospitalizations in San Francisco. While it continues to increase, San Francisco Health Director Dr. Grant Colfax says the rate of increase is slowing. ICU capacity remains above 30%. But Colfax cautions the impact of holiday travel won't hit for a week or two.
And while we have those ICU beds now in San Francisco, it is plausible with our regional or statewide surge that those numbers of ICU capacity will drop sharply, perhaps due to a worsening of our local situation or because of needs in the region and the state.
Even if San Francisco's hospital capacity holds steady, the mayor was quick to point out her hands are tied when it comes to lifting restrictions because most are tied to the state's order, which looks at the region's ICU capacity, which currently sits at just under 6%.
That means we currently have no control over lifting most restrictions, like those related to outdoor dining or personal services. What we do have control over is how we closely follow the health orders. We do have control over our individual actions that can lead us to improve our numbers so we can keep people healthy, save lives, and get out of these state restrictions.
San Francisco's health director also reminded us what we've been hearing all along, that the demand for vaccinations far outweighs the supply currently, just in that first group alone, which includes healthcare workers. He says that amounts to 80,000 vaccinations for San Francisco alone. And again, not all of those healthcare workers have yet to receive their first dose. Live at Laguna Honda, Dan Kerman, KRON4 News.
All right, Dan, and other news tonight. For many, the $600 stimulus check translates into help for rent and getting food on the table. But now a number of taxpayers who use H&R Block and TurboTax, they're finding their money went to an incorrect bank account. KRON4's Maureen Kelly talked to some of those frustrated taxpayers about the problem.
I'd be using it to pay bills, and just doing the normal grocery shopping. Just any little bit helps.
Newark resident Alyssa Constantino is one of millions of Americans who's been waiting on the $600 stimulus money. But rather than a check like last time, she chose to get a direct deposit. But when she went to the IRS website this time to see where her money was, she saw a message similar to this one. But the numbers on the bank account that the money was scheduled to be deposited into isn't hers. She's not the first KRON4 viewer to reach out about stimulus money going to the wrong place, and all of them so far have been H&R Block customers. H&R Block did not answer my questions about how widespread the problem is, but responded to my inquiry with the same message they've been tweeting out: that the IRS determines where the second stimulus payments were sent, and in some cases money was sent to a different account than the first stimulus payment last spring. We immediately deposited millions of stimulus payments to customers' bank accounts, and all direct deposits are being processed. They're directing other clients with the same problem to call their hotline or to reach out via Twitter. Alyssa says she was told that this is because she pays H&R Block to prepare her taxes with money that comes out of her refund.
But the stimulus doesn't have a fee, so they don't know why it went to that account before it went to your bank account, but it should be in by the end of the week. So we shall see.
We're now learning that some TurboTax customers are reporting similar problems, and that company says they're partnering with the IRS to help taxpayers receive their payments as quickly as possible. I talked to an IRS spokesperson who says if you qualify for the stimulus money and you don't get it at all, you should file your 2020 tax return electronically as soon as possible and claim the recovery rebate credit to get your money and any refund if you're owed one. Maureen Kelly, KRON4 News.
Today, the suspect in a deadly hit-and-run crash in San Francisco has pleaded not guilty to all charges. 45-year-old Troy McAllister made his first court appearance this afternoon. He mostly stayed quiet, except to answer questions from the judge. Investigators say McAllister stole a car from Daly City on New Year's Eve and then crashed into two pedestrians in the city's Soma district, killing both of them. Police say that McAllister was driving under the influence at the time. Officers also found a handgun and drugs inside the car. San Francisco Supervisor Catherine Stephanie had this to say about the New Year's Eve hit and run involving Troy McAllister. Quote, "The system failed Hanako Abe and Elizabeth Platt on New Year's Eve, but what's even more tragic is the failure to prevent their killing was not an isolated incident. San Franciscans deserve transparency, accountability, and public safety. It's past time they receive it," end quote.
And San Francisco District Attorney Chesa Boudin is facing growing criticism over how his office handled McAllister's previous cases. McAllister was on parole after being released from state prison in April and has since been arrested for several other crimes, but was still able to be back out on the streets. There is now a campaign calling for Boudin to step down. We have reached out to his office for a comment. So far, we have not heard back. We'll keep you posted there. Well, tonight, the future of our country's political landscape is up to voters in Georgia. 2 Senate seats are up for grabs in runoff races, and early results are just coming into the newsroom. Control of the U.S. Senate, of course, up for grabs in the Peach State with 2 runoff races that will determine which party is in power on Capitol Hill.
Our KRON4's Washington correspondent Kelly Meyer joining us now live to break down this crucial election. Kelly?
Good evening, Vicki and Grant. Well, certainly Washington is watching what happens in Georgia, as it will determine what happens in this building behind me and what policies a Biden White House can push through. Georgians were out at the polls Tuesday morning to cast their ballots in 2 Senate runoff races. Georgia's 2 incumbent Republican senators Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue are facing off against Democrats Raphael Warnock and Jon Ossoff. Both sides got a final boost of support from presidential heavyweights on the last day of campaigning. Biden made a last stop in Georgia Monday, and so did Vice President Mike Pence and President Trump.
If these 2 don't win, and if we don't take the presidency, you have a country that would be run by Schumer, Pelosi, and Biden.
Georgia voters have never had more power than you have today. That's the reason the whole world is watching us in Georgia.
Both Ossoff and Warnock have to win in Georgia for Democrats to be in the majority. If just one Republican candidate, Loeffler or Perdue, wins, Republicans will maintain their hold on the majority here in the Senate.
You know, Kelly, I know you're watching the numbers. Some of the early returns seem to be favoring the Democrats. Is that because the counts are of the mail-in ballots?
And I think because they're showing some of the counties that are generally Democratic strongholds. So I think it's important to keep watching as the night goes on. We may not know the results this evening. The Georgia Secretary of State said we may know Wednesday morning. But if you remember back in November, we didn't know until Friday.
All right, Kelly Meyer reporting for us live in Washington. Kelly will be with you throughout the night. Thank you for that. Meanwhile, Congress is set to count the Electoral College ballots tomorrow on Capitol Hill. Why this normally low-key event is now causing a lot of controversy.
Plus, you could now possibly get your COVID-19 vaccine from your dentist. Details on the latest effort to speed up vaccinations all across California.
Hi, meteorologist Lawrence Carno. Lots of sunshine and a few clouds around the Bay Area today, but dry. That's likely not going to be the same tomorrow. We've got a storm headed our way. We'll have details coming up.